Alors, bienvenue, bonjour. On va avoir encore une journée bien chargée, mais ça va être une journée intéressante. Donc, sans plus tarder, Danielle Cliche, welcome. Je me permets de vous dire que Mme Cliche a une famille célèbre Cliche, bien connue pour les gens qui sont de la région de Québec. Elle est beauceronne de père en fils et de mère en fille. Donc, elle regrette infiniment de ne pas pouvoir être avec nous à Québec. Hein? Le cœur y est. C'est pas que le cœur y est pas, mais elle est malheureusement prise à Paris. Right? Right, Danielle? Right. Et ce matin, elle souhaitait avoir le maximum de temps d'échange avec la salle. Donc, elle va prendre la parole une dizaine de minutes. C'est un petit discours qu'elle a préparé de circonstance. Puis ensuite, les questions seront à vous. Et on passez au micro. Elle nous regarde sur grand écran. Non, elle ne nous voit pas, c'est moi qu'elle voit. Alors donc, à toi, Danielle. Up to you, Danielle.
Merci, Charles. Et bonjour à tout le monde. Good morning to everybody. I can't see you, but I guess you can see me. I'm really, as Charles said, sorry for many reasons that I cannot be with you today to celebrate the 10 years anniversary of the convention, to meet with a lot of old friends who are responsible for the adoption of this convention, and of course, as Charles said, to visit my family. But on a more serious note, I would really like to thank the organizers of this event. It's one of the first and most important events on the 10 years anniversary of the convention that has been held this year. And one of the reasons why I'm not able to be with you today is because in the next 10 days, we are organizing 4 major events on the 10 years anniversary of the convention, and I hope that a lot of you will be able to join us. So first of all, let me give my great thanks to the University of Laval and the Faculté de droit, the Coalition of Cultural Diversity, both the Canadian Coalition and the International Federation, as well as the INRS. It is indeed a very striking and important conference, not only because it's the 10 years anniversary, but because it's also taking place in Quebec. And that's not also because my family comes from Quebec. But it happens to be because Canada has played, and Quebec as well, an extremely important role in the political process that led to the adoption of the convention. It's thanks to political leaders at the federal level, the provincial level, the municipal levels, to the professional associations, whether it be the coalition, whether it be the International Network for Cultural Diversity or the International Network for lawyers to promote the diversity of cultural expressions, as well as eminent personalities which are among you in this room, I'm sure, or who will be with you tomorrow, I've seen from the program, namely Sheila Copps, Yvonne Bernier. I'm not sure if Ambassador Gilbert Laurent is with you, but he is also one of the key figures that led to the adoption of the convention here in Paris, as well as others like Louise Baudouin, who continues to work on the convention and on issues which Charles has just mentioned on numérisation. 10 years seems like a long time, because I know that a lot of people are also very anxious to see the convention implemented as fast as possible. But at the same time, in international law, it's also very young. And this 10 years anniversary is a threshold where we can look back, we can take stock of where we are and look towards the future, which is something that we will be also discussing in the next 2 weeks here in Paris. So whatever conclusions are coming from this conference can be fed into that process. I just would like to step back a little bit in the beginning and remind us of where some of this came from. We'll remember the World Commission on Cultural Diversity, which produced the report, Our Creative Diversity, which then led to the Stockholm Conference in 1998 and the universal adoption of the Declaration on Cultural Diversity. During all of this time, the civil society and the governments were starting to form into different networks and also working together, calling for the creation of this new international law that would anchor culture in a way that had not done before, recognizing, as you all know, and as I'm sure is the mantra of this conference, the dual nature of cultural goods and services, that they are not commodities as similar to other consumer goods or as to be regarded as objects of trade, and the recognition in international law of the sovereign right of governments, of states, to adopt policies to support their creative sectors. And over this period of time that led to 2005, the remarkable part was the momentum and the process, not just the end result, meaning the convention, but the process that was generated that continues today, the dialogue that was established between the government and the civil society organizations. And this partnership, I would really want to stress, and we should never lose sight of it. We have to reinforce it. And we've made actually steps towards solidifying these partnerships also here in Paris that have never been done before. I can just name a few where civil society as observers to the discussions of the governing bodies can intervene before decisions are taken. Civil society can submit information documents to feed the debates and the decision-making processes of the governing bodies. Civil society has an important role to play in the periodic reports that governments submit on what actions they've taken to implement the convention. And of course, civil society is a very important partner for us in raising awareness of the convention around the world. And many of you, who I can't see, but I know who are in the room, have been very active all over the world, helping to promote ratification of the convention, helping to raise awareness, and beyond ratification, also implementation. The period up until 2005 brought up a lot of new issues as well. For example, the issue of preferential treatment, something that had not been included in any culture law before. And it was, I think, part of the context of drafting the different chapters, and Mr. Bernier will be able to tell us more, but the idea was to have specific articles in the convention that would help promote certain guiding principles related to fundamental freedoms, equality of access, openness and balance in the flow of cultural goods and services around the world. And preferential treatment measures, which were adopted in other fields, were now being anchored in the law on culture for the first time. And the uniqueness of this convention in comparison to other culture conventions here at UNESCO is that it doesn't have a list. And this was a very important decision that was taken by the states at the time, not to create a list and not to create a mechanism of competition between the governments, but to put international cooperation at the heart of this convention, which is still the platform from which the governing bodies work today. With so much at stake during those years and in those discussions, the convention was finally adopted in 2005, and we can see some of the benefits today. So I'm happy to tell you that there's now 139 parties to the convention. Just last week, we had a new party added to the list, that is Uganda. And we were hoping that we might get one more before the conference of parties in 10 days. So maybe we can work together to make sure that we get 140 for the 10 years celebration here in Paris. We'll see. Just a few milestones I want to refer to here. Many of you know them so far. In the beginning years, it was maybe not the most exciting period for many of you because the convention organisms needed to be set up. So the governing bodies had to be set up, the operational guidelines were established, and this is a very technical exercise which took some time, but actually went pretty fast. In the first operational guidelines were adopted in 2009, and we'll see, and over the past years they've been revised, and we may be looking at another revision, depending on whether or not the Conference of Parties decide to work on new guidelines on digital issues. So the discussions you're having now on digital issues will be really important input to that work, should it be decided so. In the past 10 years, the fund was set up. With the first call for projects launched in 2010. Now we are at a level of over $7 million in contributions to the fund, supporting 80 projects in 48 countries. Canada was the first to give money to the fund in 2008. Many individuals, even in this room, gave money to the fund. We can't forget the campaign Kilimanjaro, which was launched by Nico Ninkongo a few years ago to raise money for the fund. So we'll get back to some of the challenges, but we are very much hoping that Canada, which was the leader in giving the first contribution of the fund, will continue to do so in the future. In the past years, we've also seen the launch of the quadrennial periodic report. Again,
Danielle, could I stop you there, because yesterday, unfortunately, you weren't here, but Yvan Bernier presented an overview of what's been accomplished in the last 10 years. So he touched on many of the achievements that you're touching on. Maybe look to, challenges of the future ahead, and let's turn to questions to hear from the room and maybe get a more interactive session.
Okay. So,
sorry to interrupt, because I see time is flying, and we've had that very good general overview yesterday.
Okay. Well, what can I say?
Well, for instance, on digital, what's your take from where you're standing, having majority of countries that are from developing countries looking for capacity building in developing policies, supporting art and creating a marketplace for creative industries, and yet now another sort of take on these challenges with the digital era coming into play?
Well, we've done a lot of research in the last couple of years, and because we wanted to make sure, as you rightly point out, Charles, that this discussion is one which includes all countries or all parties to the convention. And so we've been talking to a lot of people, trying to collect evidence to find out what are the challenges. We know that on the one hand, there are connectivity issues, but the speed of the connectivity is much more of a challenge. Having support for creativity working or for artists to work with new digital tools. There are some excellent examples out there that we've found, and we'll be bringing them to Paris next week. But there's still a lot of work to do to set up that type of infrastructure in various countries. Of course, many of the parties are talking about what types of policies should be implemented in the future, and how the principles of the convention can be put to the test in public policy making to promote the diversity of cultural expressions.
Okay, why don't we turn to the room? Est-ce qu'il y en a qui voudraient prendre la parole sur l'un ou l'autre sujet de la Convention? Ça n'a pas besoin d'être uniquement en réaction à ce que Danielle vient de dire. Et elle peut répondre en français, soit dit en passant. Elle est aussi maintenant bien bilingue depuis qu'elle est installée à Paris. Tout ça, c'est bien amélioré.
Merci, Charles.
Oui, oui. Quelqu'un pour poser une question? Sharon Janot.
Hi, Danielle. It's been a long time.
Hi, Sharon. I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Well, that's okay. The question I have relates to the whole issue of sustainable development and sustainability within the context of the convention. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about what directions you're going with that particular theme and how successful they have been.
Well, if Charles had let me finish my speech, I would have told you about that. So I'm glad that you asked that question. Culture and development, as you know, is one of the main pillar themes of the convention, and it has become a part of the instruments through which we've been talking about setting the post-2015 Sustainable Development Agenda. So that's on the international level, but on the national level, or within the work that the parties have been doing to implement the convention in the area of culture and development, we see two trends. One, on national development policies or national development plans. For the first time in some countries, culture and the cultural industries are becoming a pillar or an axe or a part of the strategy for national growth. And on the other hand, we see in international development policies, assistance policies, we see very interesting new developments like the Danish strategy, which I quote all the time, is called the Right to Art and Culture, which is based primarily on the Articles of the Convention. So we see how they are changing their grant giving, a one-way donor-driven model to really engage with countries to put in place new institutional, legal, policy, financial mechanisms to strengthen the creative sectors in their country. And this is something that on the one hand is new, but on the other hand was part of, let's say, the European Union development policies and programs for a while. It disappeared and now it's coming back. So there's some interesting new developments, and all of this information and data that we're collecting, we're putting together in the new global monitoring report on the implementation of the convention, which will be published at the end of this year. It's sort of like an anniversary publication, but also part of support that we are now receiving from the Swedish Development Agency, which is, again, reinvesting in the culture sector, which it had stopped for some time.
Very good answer. Une autre question, et je vous inviterai peut-être à vous avancer au micro qui est en avant pour que Danielle puisse vous voir, parce qu'on a une caméra sur le groupe maintenant.
Oui, maintenant je vous vois.
C'est ça. Une autre question?
Thank you. Good morning, Danielle. My name is Christina Cameron. I'm the president of the Canadian Commission for UNESCO.
Hello.
Hi. Thank you for your presentation, even though Cheryl cut it off a bit. I was curious in the convention, as I understand it, that civil society can access the fund directly. And I wondered if, in fact, that is what is happening, or do the requests for funding come through the state's parties? I just wondered, my question is really about the relative power balance between civil society, which I've seen as very strong in the convention, and the state parties.
Sure. The civil society national NGOs have to apply through the national commissions, just like the governments do. And so the national commissions can submit or choose 2 projects from a public institution and 2 projects from an NGO to be submitted for evaluation by the fund's jury, an independent jury. Now, what you're referring to are the international NGOs, and the international NGOs can apply directly. They don't have to go through the national commissions.
Comme la Fédération internationale, par exemple, peut soumettre directement une demande de financement, mais il faut compléter la réponse de Danielle. Dans le cadre d'une organisation internationale, il doit y avoir des lettres d'appui des autorités nationales qui seront bénéficiaires et plus d'un pays. Ça doit être une initiative régionale ou internationale pour démontrer que c'est bien reçu dans le pays. Danielle Turp.
Oui, merci Charles.
Mme Cliche, J'aimerais que vous nous parliez du Fonds international.
Je vous entends pas.
Peut-être passer ici, Danielle, devant.
Pourriez-vous nous parler du Fonds international pour la diversité culturelle? Parce que quand on regarde les chiffres, c'est quand même un peu déprimant. Et quand on voit que des États, comme on nous l'a rappelé hier, comme le Canada et même le Québec, ne contribuent plus depuis quelques années, j'imagine que l'organisation et des personnes comme vous êtes un peu découragées. Présentez-nous la situation, donnez-nous l'heure juste. Qu'est-ce qui se passe? Pourquoi les États ne donnent pas suite à leur engagement de vraiment soutenir la diversité culturelle en soutenant ce fonds?
Bon, moi, je reste toujours optimiste. Oui, c'est vrai, ça, c'est un des grands défis que je voudrais parler. Et qui sera un sujet pour discussion dans quelques semaines à la conférence des parties. Je ne peux pas dire exactement pourquoi. Par exemple, le Canada, le Québec a décidé de ne pas donner au fonds depuis des années. Je peux vous dire qu'il y a d'autres pays, des nouveaux pays, comme l'Allemagne, par exemple, qui est en train de donner des contributions régulières. Nous avons travaillé beaucoup sur une stratégie de communication, une stratégie de levée de fonds. On a produit beaucoup des outils de communication pour montrer l'impact du fonds, l'impact des projets sur le terrain. On a montré aussi vers des vidéos. Alors, on a fait beaucoup de choses, mais je ne peux pas vous donner une réponse très précise. Je ne sais pas pourquoi.
Je peux aussi compléter la réponse de Danielle, puis tu vas réagir. Danielle, il y a eu déjà au début du fonds une dotation directe de l'Union européenne à l'UNESCO pour un mécanisme d'experts qui visait à accompagner, renforcer la politique, les industries culturelles dans les pays en voie de développement. Et il semble que c'est un processus conjoint, co-décisionnel, co-géré, mais pour des raisons administratives propres à l'Union européenne, qui ne pouvait pas verser au fonds. On voit maintenant la Suède faire la même chose, annoncer une dotation spécifique directe à l'UNESCO, en plus de sa contribution au Fonds international, et qui va aller au renforcement des capacités par le mécanisme d'experts. Le Danemark est aussi en ligne pour apporter une contribution de même nature sur des pays qui font dans les priorités de ces pays. Donc la Suède, en mode de codécision, identifie les pays bénéficiaires. Le Danemark également identifierait les pays bénéficiaires. Et c'est un aspect très important. Le fonds se spécialise en quelque sorte en renforcement des capacités, mais offre aussi des projets de terrain en même temps que de politique. Là, le mécanisme d'experts intervient sur toute la filière de politique, de rapports périodiques quadriennaux, du rôle de la société civile, du renforcement des industries. C'est un effet extrêmement structurant finalement, mais qui se fait en complément du fonds.
Oui.
Good answer, Danielle, or you want to add something?
No, excellent answer, Charles. I was going to mention also Sweden after you had mentioned the European Union, that in fact the parties, they're wanting to give contributions to very specific initiatives that have been also identified as priorities, such as capacity building. In 2013, the first capacity building strategy for the convention was adopted, and since then, funds have been generated to put that in place among donors who haven't engaged in the culture sector for a long time. So that's why I can also be optimistic, because maybe some of them are not giving directly to the fund, but they are contributing to the implementation of the convention. However, all of that said, raising money for the fund is a priority and it is urgent. That's for sure.
Une autre question? One more. Je pense que ça sera la dernière. Peut-être plus proche du micro.
Plus proche.
Oui, baissez le micro, c'est ça.
Merci.
Encore, oui.
Oui, par rapport à la question du fonds, je suis un peu préoccupée de voir qu'il y a quelques États qui font des apportations au fonds, mais en même temps, quand il y a un désaccord commercial dans cet autre niveau, il y a des contradictions de façon d'agir, parce qu'on peut voir des États qui donnent de l'argent au fonds, mais dans les négociations de commerce, il ne prend pas de position favorable à la Convention. Alors, je voudrais savoir si vous pensez qu'il y aura quelques stratégies dans l'UNESCO, au niveau de la secrétariat, pour régler cette position parfois contradictoire. Merci.
Sorry, Charles, can you repeat the question? Because with the acoustics, I didn't hear the question.
I just want to make sure I got it right. I think she's saying we seem to see countries that are contributing but don't seem to be actively involved in the convention. They seem to have contradictory sort of views on the need but still want to be there. Do you have strategies to address that? Est-ce que c'est bien résumé? Non, pas tout à fait.
Par exemple, c'est ça. Par exemple, l'article 21 demande une façon d'agir pour les États dans le domaine des accords commerciaux. Tandis qu'on peut voir des États qui se disent favorables à la Convention de diversité culturelle parce qu'ils donnent de l'argent au fonds, mais du point de vue plus général et des droits internationaux, ces questions, c'est un peu anecdotique, mais la plus grande question de la coopération culturelle, au développement culturel, passe par des accords commerciaux. Alors ma préoccupation, c'est de voir des États qui agissent en contradiction avec articles 20 et 21, qui sont pour moi très importants parce qu'en plus, ils sont rédigés dans des termes assez obligatoires. Et je pense qu'il faut régler cette contradiction et je me demandais s'il y a quelques idées pour ça, parce que j'ai vu que la secrétariat fait un labeur très important en recueillant des bonnes pratiques pour le remplissement de l'article 21. Alors,
Did you get that, Danielle? Was that clear?
No, I'm sorry, I couldn't hear anything.
Okay, well, my microphone is gone. So she's just saying that we see countries contributing to the fund but not upholding their responsibility under Article 20 and 21. There seemed to be a contradiction. Why would they not? You know, this is the most important articles and they're committal, and we don't see them sort of acting on 20 and 21 while they're contributing to the fund. What kind of response or strategy to make them come in line?
Well, what's really important to see, and you'll see pretty soon, is that the implementation of Article 21 is advancing. At the beginning, I said that everybody wants the convention to be in worldwide implementation right now, immediately. But it takes time. And we can see through the research that the University of Laval has been doing that the convention is starting to be recognized and included in trade agreements. Now, some people may say only a handful of trade agreements, but I say those trade agreements, they touch upon around 50 countries, 70 countries. So this is really a significant and important, maybe slow, movement to have the convention recognized in trade agreements on the one hand, and the recent EU-Canada agreement that you discussed yesterday, I think, is one really important example. Another one I mentioned earlier is the recognition of the convention in other fora, not only in trade, but also in development and cooperation within the United Nations Sustainable Development Agenda and so forth. But in order to be able, because as you know, there's no violations mechanism in the convention itself. And the one way to monitor what is happening and what challenges are being faced is through these periodic reports and is through this new global monitoring report that we will publish for the first time at the end of this year. So we need more information. We need to see what's happening. and through the capacity building strategy and program that will be a long-term exercise. It's not something that happens 1 year and all of a sudden everything is perfect the next. It's a long-term exercise. And we've had an important decision from the committee in December to start working on capacity building modules for trade negotiators. So through all of this work, outreach is very important. This is what I wanted to say earlier, that one of the challenges and an important things in the future is outreach. And to reach out, communicate what is the convention, to have this capacity building exercises, to really be able to implement it directly into policies, into agreements, into different funding mechanisms and policies. So this is part of our strategy anyway, and we are not doing this alone. So when you say the Secretariat, I see the Secretariat as we here in Paris, but all of you and many more others around the world working together to implement this convention.
Danielle, je vais te poser une dernière question et je veux une réponse courte.
Oui. Une réponse courte? Une
réponse courte, 30 secondes, si tu peux parler. J'étais présent et d'autres à Paris en décembre dernier, numérique, la salle est pleine, les États-Unis sont là, le Japon qui n'a pas signé est là, ils interviennent sur le débat au numérique. Qu'est-ce que tu lis dans ces interventions des États-Unis, du Japon et d'autres?
Un grand intérêt dans la Convention.
Est-ce que tu dirais qu'ils vont vouloir mettre leur intérêt aussi dans le débat sur le numérique?
Bon, on verra dans quelques jours.
Merci pour ta réponse courte, Danielle. Je pense qu'on peut la remercier et puis la féliciter pour son intervention.